Hello and welcome, I'm Tafara Gadamum. My guest today started small but made a steady rise in reversing the state of malnourished school children here in Ethiopia. Frealem Shibabaw is a story of how a simple, clean, strategic intervention could be weaved into a national policy. A very well welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking about school meals, the initiatives that finally kind of took some shape and helped design policy for this country along that line. It all started way back in 2001 or two.
Yes.
When you established your academy, basically your school in Bahar Dar up north.
Yes. It was a very interesting story because I'm very passionate about community development. It really helps me to understand the world I live in. And what are the issues and, what keeps us going and what are the things we need to improve? What are the things that we can't change so that we can live a good life? So I've been involved in the community very highly for the last 18 years. And in the school that I established, it's called Bahar Dar Academy, and I was running it. It's going well, and I was very happy and proud about the school, popular school, children loved it. And I was doing everything I could to make sure that the school is a second home for the children that we were educating. And it was around the fourth
Second
year.
home in what sense? I mean, because
In terms of safety, safety is a very critical issue for me when I manage school. And then we can talk about education second. Because they are children and they need to be protected. So schools need to be safe first. So we have safety procedures in terms of facility. In terms of management also, the words we use, how we manage classrooms, how we manage academics, and how we manage problems, everything. We have all kinds of principles and procedures. So those are very important for me. So I was very, very, very happy. And at that time, I was really thinking about how we can replicate this experience into the wider community schools and what are the things we need to really change there. Is it possible to do this somewhere else? These are the things I was really working on, and I was going after expanding schools and visiting schools and all kinds of things. Then there was this report that a kid in my school that I gave a scholarship was bringing an empty lunchbox. That was the turning point for me to start to think about what happens at home can really affect a kid.
It's interesting. Why empty lunchbox? Why the lunchbox, if it is empty in the first place? Why do you bring that? Why was he bringing that?
Because everybody was bringing in a lunchbox and he didn't have lunch. His mom was too poor to pack him lunch, and he had to
just to pretend.
He had to look like everybody. Yeah, and he was too shy
age.
to tell the teachers that he did not have lunch. So he was pretending he ate while he didn't. So the teacher reported this problem to the office, and the office brought it to me. And the first reaction was, honestly, I was really heartbroken. I really didn't know what to do. It was just felt so that, okay, I don't know my community very well, I did not think about this before. So the first reaction was that, and then it was sad. And yeah, of course, we had some organization that we signed up so that they can bring him lunch to the classroom. That was solved. But then, for me, it was a subject that I really I wanted to pay attention to. So the social systems that are missing in our community can affect children's life and might even be a bigger problem more than we can imagine. So that was my assumption. So I really decided to do research. How many children are affected by this?
In that town, in the city?
In that city. First, I took the data from schools, and then I personally made a personal visit with my team. And I just I interviewed teachers, school leaders and communities and children. And it was much, much bigger problem than I thought. That was the turning point for me. And then I started collecting data at a national level, Ministry of Education. we took numbers, like how many dropouts, what are the ages that children drop out. And most of our children drop out of school before they complete grade 4. But the reasons are not stated in the report. It's just the numbers. So it was a shocking finding for me, because you cannot quit school before you finish grade 4 and expect everything to be okay in this country. So it was like awakening for me. So could this be an economic reason that parents are not able to support their children? So they just, kids fall off from school. And nobody knows where they are, what they're doing. So that really worried me. So we started a little survey in different communities, for instance, Oromia region, Tigray, Amhara region, Afar, Somalia. We took sample data, like what are the reasons children are dropping off from school. And most of it happened to be economic reasons that the parents cannot support. So economic, if we start school feeding programs, can that support families? Can that support children to stay in school? So this was the program that we were designing. So we talked with different people, including government officials, non-profit organizations, huge international organizations also.
I remember there were a number of institutions, some of them that you just mentioned, were reaching that conclusion already.
Yeah. But people who were involved in this problem, they know it very well. It's a big problem, but they don't know how to solve it. They don't have the answer. That was frightening, that we have these many children dropping out of school and nobody's doing anything about it. That really scared me. So we said the first thing we did was having a dialogue with the regional leaders and their cabinet members. The first presentation I made for them a while back, before I started the school meal program, was very interesting. I told them the story about this kid, and I was emotional when I was presenting it, and I was crying, they were crying. And I told them, I asked them, why do we need government if you don't solve this kind of problem? Because it's a huge problem. It affects everybody. It affects the nation. It affects our future. If we have these many kids dropping out of school, isn't that your concern as leaders?
And sure enough, they know about dropouts and about the kids going to school hungry and dropping out and all that stuff. It's pretty much up in the sky.
There was this typical assumption that, of course, Ethiopia is a poor country, and what can we do about it? And I was like, how does poverty start? How does a person become poor in the first place? If a person is not educated, cannot support himself or herself, and then they're vulnerable. So the cycle of poverty, people are not very much aware, including politicians. And the knowledge on nutrition is very new, even to the world, not just for Ethiopia, but the world was not very much aware. When we have a lot of food, it's a big problem, because now many countries are facing obesity and all kinds of public health problems because of they don't know what to eat. And when you don't have food, just like our country, malnutrition, you become stunted and your brain does not work and you cannot learn. And after it's too late, you cannot reverse it. You have to secure your children. So this knowledge was given to the regional leaders and cabinet members, politicians, policymakers at all levels. We were out there telling them. So one thing they asked us was, okay, we are convinced. They were convinced. It didn't take that long to convince them.
And you were talking about 50% of school children, nearly 50%, seriously malnourished.
When we started this program, some regions, they had 52% children malnourished. A huge number. Mm-hmm. Almost half of your future population is malnourished, and they will not be functional. They will not be healthy. And the consequences are serious. There are economic consequences, social consequences, all kinds of consequences because of that. So we started the dialogue, and they asked us, you have to show us how we do this program. How do we do it? So my argument, starting from when we started this conversation was the country should have a school meal program in the main education system. We should not see it as a charity organization program. We should not see it as helping the poor program. We should see it as a human development program that our country needs. So this was the point that was very hard to convince, that why should we feed everybody? But this country is feeding university students, but we're not feeding children when they drop out of school before they finish grade 4. So this was the argument and the debate we brought to the table. So our initial mission is to make food a national agenda, especially for the children and school meal programs.
And you are starting with the Addis Ababa City Administration to make that a big issue.
No, we started working with Ministry of Education first. No. For 1 whole year, we were preparing this national document. And then the Ministry of Education put it in the roadmap in the education system that we will have food for all the students up to grade 8, preschoolers up to grade 8. That was the first step that the government took. And then after that, the Addis Ababa City Administration took the first step to start school meal programs for all schools in Addis Ababa. That was a huge decision that the city made that really made us happy and proud.
It's all about mainstreaming it, is it not? I mean, it's not just exactly. So was it easy to replicate that elsewhere in the country? I mean, to have it as part of the national agenda as a priority, in fact, is one thing. To be able to get it through to all the schools is quite a difference.
That's the second step. The first step was to give out the knowledge. What happens if we don't have these programs? What happens to our children? What happens to the nation? What happens to our country? What will happen to our economy? What will happen to the good quality life we deserve to live if we don't do this, if we just forget these kids who are dropping out of school left and right?
Yeah, it compromises the whole concept of education as a right.
It compromises the national interest. It's about national security. It's about national wellness, national benefits for everyone. So it really has a steps. When we lobby for this program, the first step was to give out this knowledge for people to think about what they want. It's not what, sometimes we don't know what we want. We don't know how we can shape our community's life, and we don't know how it all begins, the suffering and the miserable life that people live. Where does it begin? So people don't know this. People don't know it all starts in the childhood, in the upbringing, where you cannot really solve your own problems because you're a child and you don't know anything about it. You're just here. I don't choose a family. I don't choose a country. I don't choose a place when I'm born. I just find myself here. So the society is responsible for my wellness, my well-being, my education. Society should take care of me. Society should make sure that I get good training. So I lead my life first, and then I'm a peaceful and productive person when I function in my society. So that it all starts when you are children. This knowledge was not there.
Why do you think it wasn't there?
I don't know. I don't know the reason.
These people who are at that level, leadership level, are not. They are educated. They know what it means to have a very healthy living. They know what it means to suffer from malnutrition at the very least. Why was it that wasn't that clear to you?
The reason I don't know. I've written so many concept notes, so many things, but I think the way they were raised in the family, the value systems, the cultural thinking, cultural boundaries, I don't know, but it could be a lot of things. Always, even policymakers, always pay attention to the adults only, not the children. So we were really struggling to make these issues into the discussion table at a high level, policy level and program level issues. It's not only, this problem is not only in Ethiopia, it's an African problem. The difference between developed countries and underdeveloped countries, in my opinion, is not the building and the road and everything. It's the way we raise our kids. It's the way we make sure that every kid is secured.
You helped reverse the course. Is that correct?
Reverse the course. We made sure that people think about these things. These things are very important. It's a policy issue. It's a program issue. and it's a national security issue, a national wellness issue, that people really should put it on their agenda, priority list. So we made sure that it's taken seriously, and it has been taken seriously.
So much so that, the Prime Minister's office then, when was it, a few years back, took it, as an issue to be handled
yes,
at that level?
It was included in the Growth and Transformation Plan on the second Growth on GTP2. It became another program that we proposed to the government was Sakota Declaration. It's a nutrition declaration to zero malnutrition
and stunting too.
30, yes, stunting. So these are huge achievements on government side. So they took these programs very seriously, and we have Sakota Declaration office now under the Ministry of Health. They're doing really good job now. As I said earlier, knowledge should come first. Before you make it a program, you have to have the knowledge. And the thinking, the mindset, the wanting to do it, deciding to do it, and then you do it. So these are the process that we've been going through. When we start lobbying, there was very, very little knowledge.
And actually resistance of sorts.
Resistance, yes. We expected that. Because it's new. So the concept was new, and we had to do a lot of work to make sure that people understand. We used a lot of media programs to lobby. We started programs in 5 regions to show it works, and dropout was 0 in everywhere that we started milk programs in all places, in 25 schools. We were able to document.
You started it in Sabata and
yes.
Addis Ababa before you said.
Addis Ababa, Amhara region, Tigray. So we recorded all the results we've seen from our programs. It's incredible. It's huge. The impact is huge. It's not just feeding children. It's about connecting community with the schools. It's about securing our children. It's about having an intact local economy. And it does have a lot of contribution for people to lead a peaceful life and a stable life in their communities when they have school feeding programs in their schools also.
It's interesting you keep on mentioning knowledge. It's a very interesting. So, coming back to my earlier question, in terms of replicating this, is it holding?
Now it's mandatory.
It is mandatory, but is it holding? Is it thanks to you?
Roadmap of Ethiopian education system that food should be available for children in the school premises. So to implement this, of course, regions are autonomous. They have to decide. They have to have allocated budget and the system. That's why we admire the courage that Addis Ababa city administration took, and the mayor took a huge step, and he took an excellent decision-making process that they decided first, because usually the capital city should be a role model and example for the rest of the country. So, because they can closely monitor it, even the policymakers around in the parliament and people who are leading the country.
And also fairly easy to pull resources.
Yes. No, it's also very close to see the progress and to see the impact. Because always learning is good. You start some program, you learn from it, and then you see it's good, and then you want to replicate it everywhere. So I am a part of that agency now, the Addis Ababa School Feeding Agency. Vice chair. I'm vice chairing the board, and we will help them establish a good system that really can stay for a long time and becomes a public program, public supported program. The community supports us already. I have seen mothers praising the city administration for deciding for a good program. And 10,000 mothers got employment from this program. So it's a huge job creator also. Local farmers outside Addis Ababa who are producing food will definitely have a predicted market every year.
So, we're talking about this program, the Ethiopian School Meals Initiative, right? And actually that was... It's playing really. You are the talk of the town Listen,
Thank you.
in Addis Ababa, and you can see the impact. In my neighborhood, there is a school, and I can see the impact. Do you travel around the country and have a look for yourself?
Yes.
To look at.
I have traveled a lot locally. I always see schools before I see anything. Even outside Ethiopia, when I travel, I always like to visit schools. Schools are indicators for me about how the country is doing. You see a school and you know the country very well, how the children are being educated and how they are being managed, and it just tells me a lot more than anything to see schools. I've seen schools almost everywhere in our country, all city schools. Rural areas. I've traveled in remotest areas to see how children are being taken care of. That's why I gave it all my time and resource. That it's a work that's, for me, it's worthwhile, and it's been a long-standing problem that food has been a big problem for our country. If you recall, in 1984, the country suffered from a huge drought that we lost hundreds and thousands of citizens because of drought. And since then, I don't think we really managed to tackle the problem of food in general, for the general public even. We suffer in two ways when we talk about food. We have a community that does not have access for food, and we have a community that food is too expensive. You have a salary, but you cannot afford to buy the food that you really want. In my opinion, a country should secure these things, because a person cannot live without food. I could live without a car, I could live without a nice house, but I cannot live without food. My system cannot function without food. I cannot be productive without food. So when you calculate the price of food at a national level, I think we need to use a different formula than we're using now, because it's not working. Whatever we're using is not working now, because food is not affordable for many people. A young man who graduated from Addis Ababa University, who had his or her first job as an engineer, cannot buy the food they want every day. That is a problem for me. That needs to be solved. So food should be cheap and accessible, affordable to all citizens. That has been the issue that I have been discussing, and I even wrote it in my book. I mentioned it in my book that we should have these principles first. Then when I say knowledge, this is what I mean. It's like, how should we treat food? It's not like any other commodity. It's not like clothes or cars or anything. Food is essential for a human being to stay healthy, to be functional, to live, to sustain life. So how should a country, not just Ethiopia, but any country, should treat food? Do we have the knowledge we need? Do we have the philosophy we need? Do we have the thinking, the mindset? Then the systems follow our thinking and our knowledge.
You talk about for the last 20 to 25 years you've been working on this, and you've
18 years.
18 years, okay. I was generous with those years. So you really made a difference, and now we are here. But we see people, young people, your university is dying. It's become so much part of our lives. I mean, you're talking about a very basic thing of feeding kids till grade 8, and then they could really be receptive enough to education and all that stuff. And here at a higher level, we're facing those challenges. We're not even... does that worry you? I'm sure it does.
Yes, it worries me. The incidents we've been watching and observing in our universities is something unacceptable, totally.
Why do you think is that happening?
We don't know the real reasons. They seem to be induced sometimes. When you have too much politics going on, then children can be used. But that is, for me, that's not the issue. The issue is how we raise our kids and how we manage our schools is critical for me, because I managed schools in the last 18 years. And the way we manage our schools needs a lot of work. As I said, when you have children in your premises, like young students, even university students, still very young, they join school at the age of 16. They're very young. They need to be taken care of. They need to be busy. So our university management needs a lot of improvement, because first, safety rules, safety at all levels. we have to make sure that our universities are safe for our students, especially for girls. So these are not acceptable. It's worrisome. It worries me. It worries everybody. Everybody's worried. But are these things very difficult for us to do? No, they're not very difficult. We can't do this. We can't have vibrant universities that are safe and engaging for our students. But I go back to the whole management system, that how we are managing our schools. That's the question I have right now.
Well, thank you very much for your reflections. It was indeed a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you,
Tafarra.
Tafarra.
That's a pleasure.
It was
Thank you
very
so
nice.
much.